Monday, June 16th. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights Mondays. Tonight, it's a tech news roundup.
Let's do this. You know what I did at work today?
What did you do? Work?
I did actually work, but while I was working, I was watching Tiger Woods.
You know, I was working. I had a lot to do, and I was really busy at work, so I'm typing furiously and doing my thing. And there's a meeting, like my boss and my boss's boss and a bunch of other people are in the conference room, which I think I've talked about
Has a
this
satellite
before.
dish hooked up to a television?
Oh, no. Well, yeah, but not for that.
Oh, because
anyway.
ours does. We have Dish Network. Well, I think we have DirecTV in our conference room.
But it's a conference room, but like I've said before, my entire office is one big room with all glass walls and glass doors. It's really cool. So I noticed, like I kind of looked to see if they're going to be done yet because I got to talk to my boss about something before I go. And I see that they're all looking behind me and not talking about whatever they're talking about. So I look behind me and I see all the salespeople and the customer support people, and they're all standing, and it looks like they're all watching one guy's computer. So my boss's boss walks out and he's like, "What are you guys doing? Watching so-and-so do some work? Maybe you could take a hint and work." And then he comes like, "All right, guys, what are you really looking at?" And we're watching like the sudden death, whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't even know golf had a sudden death.
Well, see, here. Oh, let me explain it to you then.
Oh, I know how it works now.
Oh, okay.
Someone at work explained it to me, and I was like, "Oh, wow." And then I watched it because that golf was suddenly really interesting.
Well, see, here's the thing. Golf as a sport, right? Especially, playing it can be fun. Actually, I would play golf if, number one, it was significantly less expensive. Number two, it took a lot less time to play.
See, the thing
Number
is,
three, I could just walk up and play and not have to call up and get a tee time and then wake up at the crack ass at dawn.
one, it is cheap to play if you use used clubs and play in crappy places.
Which is not worth playing because then the game sucks.
When it's raining.
It sucks even worse then.
Two, it takes a long time on purpose because people play golf to get away from their real lives.
I know.
And most people who
know.
play golf seem to play just as an excuse to hang out.
Yep, that's true. I feel though like if we could design a golf course, right, in such a way.
Oh, I know. You know, you design a giant mini golf course.
Well, no, what I would do is I would have normal golf holes, right? But half the holes take you away from sort of the main base and the other half bring you towards it. And then you could send people, like the first people who show up, you send them to hole 1. The second group that shows up, you send them to hole 3. You see? And you can and you make people play fast. And you can.
Well, you've already lost every golfer who's like,
You lost people who are golfers now, but you might get a whole new bunch of golfers. Regardless, right? Golf is not that interesting to watch. The action of golf is not exciting, right? It's not like a hockey game where you can watch a crappy high school hockey game, but the action will be awesome enough to entertain.
He putts.
Right.
It goes in. Hey, it went in.
But because, right, of the insane drama of who is playing and what the stakes and the circumstances were, right, the drama in itself of who's going to win and who's going to lose is enough to make you watch. And
the only thing that got me to watch was the fact that it was sudden death.
Right. Well,
because then
it was even worse sudden death than you think, as I will explain. You see, Tiger Woods hasn't played golf, at least not at a tournament, in like months because he was having some knee surgeries, right? He said, "I'm going to take off until the U.S. Open because that's important and I want to win that really badly," right? And the U.S. Open is being played in Torrey Pines in San Diego, which is pretty much down the street from, Navy Golf, which is where Tiger Woods played with his dad when he was a kid. And the tournament was on Father's Day weekend, right? So you see where this is going. And Tiger Woods is playing with a hurt knee. So he plays through 4 days, and he's actually doing pretty badly. And at the end of the 4th day, he's tied with this other guy named Rocco Mediate. And Rocco's actually a pretty cool dude. He's not like an asshole or anything. He's a really fun kind of guy. He's like 45 years old.
What do you base that on?
What do you mean?
Is that just like the media telling he's a good guy?
Well, no, you watch him play and you can see he's sort of having fun. And
I see by his golf technique that he must be a good person.
not his technique, by his
Look at
demeanor
that
when he's
guy.
hanging out.
His putter. Look at the way he holds his
You
putter.
can tell if
That
you
is
watch.
a man who hates his mom.
If you watch golf, you're making this take too long. It could have been done with this already. If you watch golf, you can see how the attitudes and the emotions of the players as they walk around and stand there and whatnot. You can see what kind of people they are. Like that John Daly is just like a drunken bum, but whatever. And Rory Sabatini's an asshole. Anyway,
You already know more names of golfers than I've ever known.
right? You don't know Jack Nicklaus?
And Tiger Woods.
That's it. Okay, so so you have Tiger Woods, the greatest golfer to ever live, pretty much, right? And he's tied on the fourth day of the tournament. So the U.S. Open, unlike any other golf tournament, or at least most other golf tournaments, and they usually, if you're tied on a golf tournament, they'll just make you play the 18th hole again. And whoever, if you win, you win, and if you lose, you lose. And if you tie, you do a different hole until someone wins, right? The U.S. Open, if you tie, it makes you play another 18 holes on Monday. Now, of course, no one can watch on Monday except the old people because everyone's at work. Smart Golf puts the golf on the internet streaming live video for free. Other sports, take heed.
That is, in fact, how we were watching it at work.
I mean, if that wasn't like that, who would have watched? Nobody. Now you might say, whoa, how are the broadcasters making money off of this? Well, they have to work that out. But you know what? Someone was making money off of this. You know who is very, very happy about this streaming live video of golf? Well, first of all, golf was very happy. As I could tell by the comments under the video, it was creating new golf fans. And two, notice how Tiger Woods is wearing like Nike stuff all the time. Notice how the other guy was wearing like Callaway stuff, I think.
It's a living ad.
Yes, those people, the sponsors and the endorsers of the players, would be very happy if sports were streaming video on the internet. If I was an endorser, advertiser type person, what I would do is instead of buying TV ads or something like that, I would pay to get my, my ad on like the football field or the ice hockey rink. And then I would pay the broadcaster and I would say, you were putting this on the internet for free so people can see my ad that's on the ice hockey rink. And other sports need to take a lesson here because whatever sports do this more are going to become more popular than the others.
All right. I guess I could talk about how I went to buy a new mountain bike, but I think we should get to the news.
The big news?
The news that everyone's been... It's a little passé now, which is good because...
That's good.
Yeah.
So we can't avoid talking about iPhone news, can we?
I might get one.
I'm definitely going to get one. There's no question about it at this point.
There's a 75% chance that I will get one.
There's a 100% chance, and I'm going to tell you why. The new iPhone, is by no means perfect. It has its flaws.
For one,
it has many flaws.
Can't get podcasts by any usual or nice means.
Yes, that is a major flaw. There are other major flaws. It is very closed. That is a problem. I can't just do whatever I want with it. I can't just be making Skype calls on it yet, at least. That's not, other phones can do that. There are many problems with it. It is by no means perfect. However, if you compare it to every other phone in existence that is available in the entire world, actually, I would say, right? It is superior for these reasons. Let's compare it to...
That's a lot like the democracy is the worst possible form of government after every possible form we've already tried.
Precisely. Let's take a look at a good competitor, the Nokia N95, 97, whatever it is, right?
Yep.
The phone that does everything. The problem is the iPhone has a web browser. The Nokia N95 has a web browser. The Nokia N95 web browser is usable. The Apple web browser is far superior. It's actually a pleasure to use, right? The Nokia N95 can play some MP3s. It sure can. It can also play some videos.
The iPhone has iTunes.
It is an amazing music and video player. An top of the line. It is as good as a standalone MP3 player. In fact, better than that because it's also the phone. And if the phone rings, it's very clever with how it will, pause the music and all that, right? Those sorts of, it has the visual voicemail. There are not many other people have that going on, where if you get a voicemail, you can just look at the text instead of having to stupid dial and then listen. That is a pleasure, right? When you make text messages, it does the threading like an IM conversation, right? it is also a GPS, a high-quality GPS.
Yes,
So-
no, a lot of people were confused about this. It's not the cell phone GPS that most cell phones have where they triangulate with cell towers.
It's
This
assisted GPS.
Yes.
Which is better than regular GPS. It is like the best GPS you can get as a consumer, pretty much. So basically, for the price of less than the Nokia whatever, right, you're getting something that might be lacking a few features that the Nokia device has. But the features it does have are actually usable, whereas in the Nokias and the other phones are less usable to the point. I mean, on your BlackBerry, it has a web browser, right? But you wouldn't actually be web browsing with that shit.
I do, but the thing is...
It's painful.
Oh, yeah, that's why the only site I go to is Google Reader. And even then, it sucks.
Right. But here on the iPhone, it has less features, but the features it has are actually usable. And on this is why the thing is, the same thing is true for Mac OS X. Mac OS X has less features than Linux or Windows, but they're more usable. And that's a bad thing because on a PC, on a big honking machine, I want 100% features. I want to be able to do anything.
But on a portable device, especially with a small interface like that, I want to be able to do the few things I need to do as best as I can do them as quickly as possible.
Because even on the PC where Windows or Linux are less usable than Mac, I guess theoretically, they're still usable. On the phones, the unusable interfaces are unusable. They are painful to use. Even where Windows or Linux suffers compared to OS X in terms of interface, they're not impossible. They're not painful. They're just a little less slick. The iPhone is a pleasure where the other phones are, torture to try to get those features to happen. All right, so that is why I will get the iPhone, because I can replace my phone, which sucks. I can replace my iPod, which I guess is okay. I'll be replacing it with a similar, better iPod. And I won't have to go and buy one of those TomTom or one of those other company GPS thingies. And I can get that all in one thing. I can carry less things around with me, which is a huge thing that the other phones don't have going for them. Because if I bought the Nokia or something, I still have to have my iPod because it's not a good video audio player. All right, and I'll only have to carry one thing, and it'll be great. I'll have three things in one. Three things which I would have had to carry separately before.
And I mean, of course, 3G.
Yeah, that's as fast as it goes in terms
Granted, do be aware, all of you out there, that 3G will, if you're using it, will substantially cut your battery life.
Yeah, but the point of 3G is that there is no Wi-Fi here. I want to still be able to browse the web, and I don't want it to be painful. With the 2G iPhone, browsing the web and some such when there are no Wi-Fi access was painful, ludicrously painful, because 2G, wireless service is pretty much good for making phone calls and not much else.
Just so people are aware of these are the stats as they have released them, which means that obviously the real world load is much less. 10 hours of 2G talking, 5 hours of 3G talking.
That's still, considering the fact that this is also going to be an MP3 video player and a GPS.
Yeah.
I'm going to be charging it in my car. I'll be charging it at work. I'll be charging it at home. I'll probably have it I'm actually getting the docks instead of just the cables. That way, at work, it can stand up and I can sort of poke at it while it's just standing there. Maybe I can use it as my clock radio at home, wake up and there it is.
I'd probably have a dock at home and just a cable at work.
I don't know. We'll see what I do. We'll see what the prices on those things are.
Yeah.
I mean, the dock is really just a little plastic thing for the cable to go into. It's not special in any way.
Yeah, it depends.
Yeah. But yeah, at work, it'll probably just be charging, but at home, it'll be syncing.
But the point I was getting to, 5 hours of 3G, 6 hours of Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Remember, when you want to use those things, you have a radio in there, and you have to turn this radio on with a large amount of energy to power that antenna and send out a radio signal.
My laptop or any good laptop usually has a hard kill all the wireless switch, which is one for the, you're on a plane, you can just kill all the wireless and be safe. But, safe from getting screwed by the airline if they find you. But two, it'll save a couple hours on your battery.
Yeah. I mean, that's really... the iPhone, as far as I know, is actually very smart about turning on and off the different parts of itself when it needs them. I mean, from what I've heard, the GPS, right, will only turn on for a little bit, get the coordinates, and turn off. It won't have a staying on, sustained GPS, because that would kill the battery, in 30 minutes, probably.
But then again, I'm sure certain applications, say you had it docked to something in your car with some sort of navigation thing, then you don't care. It's being powered
Right,
from the car.
exactly. Another thing is that they're talking about if you want to make a service that pushes, right, to the phone, the thing is, if they just let people program that on their own, that would they could kill the battery on the phone very easily if the phone is polling a server somewhere or depending on the architecture of it, right? So Apple made this thing that people are two ways about, and there are two ways about it, where if you want to make an application that pushes data to the phones, you actually push your server's data to this Apple server, and then the Apple server manages the pushing to the phones. Which on the one hand, it sort of goes more towards that they've closed the platform, they're limiting what developers can do and such and whatnot, which is, not so great, but it's going to save you a lot of battery life, and it'll actually be, I think, easier for people to develop applications that push to the phones, rather than before where, they would have had to develop it on their own and they might conflict with people, and I think it will make a smoother experience despite being yet another lacking of features and possibilities.
So I assume you're going to get the 8 gig.
I don't know. I might get the 16. I got to think about it.
Really?
I'm not sure which way
I
to
know
go.
a lot of people were complaining about the fact that there was no 32 gig.
I don't need 32 gigs. I mean,
Well,
I
can understand why they would complain because I can conceive of a lot of lifestyles where I would need that, but I use a 2 gig nano right now.
The reason I have a 4 gig nano, and the reason I'm thinking about the 16, right, is because only $100 more.
Yep.
Which is not too bad, right? I can afford it. But in addition to I'll be putting a lot more musics on it, right? Because it'll be like my primary device and whatnot. And I'm starting to organize my music in iTunes. I'm already, using more music on my iPod as it is. But I'm going to be installing apps and things. And who knows how much space they're going to take up. So rather than wait around, I want to get the most for my money. I mean, it'll cost the same amount of money to get this thing around holidays as it will now. So buying it earlier just means I'll get more for my money in terms of all those months of being able to use it.
Yep.
So I can't wait for a bigger one. So it might be a good idea to just get the big one from the get-go.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I'm waiting, I'm probably going to get one, but I'm waiting a little bit, partly because the main reason I want to go with this is because it has kind of the BlackBerry push and all that. And my work, we're going to try to set that up. And we got to make sure that it's good enough to where I can drop my BlackBerry.
Yeah.
Because if I don't need my BlackBerry anymore, I'm all about having just an iPhone to carry.
Yep, not having to carry more than one device is quite amazing.
Of course, there's one benefit of having my current setup where I have the BlackBerry and the crappy old
You
Razor.
can turn the BlackBerry off and escape work.
No, because I could probably just not turn off notifications from the work stuff when I was on vacation.
I imagine.
The trouble is, I do a lot of sports, like mountain biking today. I was out biking in the pouring rain for like 45 minutes.
All right.
I bring my crappy cell phone with me. Oftentimes I'll wipe out, and that cell phone is in a lot of danger.
Well, you can get a little protective thingy for the iPhone. Keep it, like a little armband thingy or something like that.
It's not so great because the shocks alone, especially, I mean, it would have to be a pretty sturdy piece of equipment.
Well, I mean, as long as you don't as long as it doesn't hit the pavement and get scratched up, if you just shake it around, it's all solid state, so it's not going to hurt it.
But my phone there have been many times where I've landed against a tree or something, and pretty much straight on my cell phone.
Well, I mean, but it was in your pocket, right?
Yeah.
See, I'm thinking someone should make something, right? That would be like maybe a little metal, like sealed container, sort of, that with like a strap. So, like, if you're doing something heavy duty, you can bring it with you.
Yeah, I'll have to find something like that.
Like a plastic shell, not just the kind that covers all of it but the screen, but like a complete plastic shell that locks shut. But still has little tiny holes in it. So, like, maybe it still wouldn't be waterproof, but you could hear it if it rings, and you would just sort of be, if you landed on it.
I'd rather have straight up sealed waterproof hermetic. Just
you could get that too, but then you wouldn't hear it ringing.
I don't care about that. I only carry the phone in case, one, I want to see what time it is.
Or you need to call an emergency.
Yes. Or usually an emergency for me is, I ran too far and I can't get home before dinner. Will someone come pick me up? I'm somewhere in New Paltz.
See, the only reason I was, before hearing all the news of the new iPhone, right, I was torn between the iPhone or waiting for the Android phones. And the thing is, I'm a heavy user of the Google apps for domains, right? Google is my thing for communications. And the fact that they're doing this mobile me, well, first of all, if I wasn't using Google apps for domains, and the mobile me thing was free, I would have gone for it.
Right away.
But I'm not going to go for it. Google Apps for Domains is where it is. Screw mobile me. It's not worth the money, even if I didn't have Google Apps. Right. So the reason the Android phone was appealing, obviously, is because it would have had better integration with my Google Apps and my Gmails and my Google Calendar and all that business, where the iPhone does integrate with that, but only on a mediocre level. It does basically the bare minimum integrating with the Google stuff. And that's sort of sad and disappointing. But the Google phone, even the Android, as good as it might have been, or as good as it will be, because from everything I've seen, it is pretty awesome. There's no way that is a good enough MP3 player. There's no way it's a good enough video player. There's no way it's a good enough GPS. I would have to have that and have other stuff. I would have to have an iPod still. And having fewer devices is worth, if you tell me I have a choice, since there is no perfect option out there, if I have to choose between my Google interfacing is slightly mediocre or I have to carry a bunch of things instead of one thing, I'm going to carry the one thing and have the mediocre Google experience.
I don't trust Google to fully support my 4 domains because they don't support it for crap now.
That is true. Google Apps for domains, I don't know if people know about this. We use it heavily. Is if you get a Gmail account, right, it's at gmail.com, right? But let's say you don't really want to run a web server because web servers suck and it sucks to run them. But you want to be people to email you at yourowndomain.com. So for us, it's frontrowcrew.com. But we don't want to run the mail server. Well, Google will run the mail server for you, and it just looks like Gmail. It is Gmail, but it's your domain. So when you email us, we actually go to Gmail and read those emails. But it's not a Gmail account. It's a frontrowcrew.com Google Apps for Domains account. The thing is, they don't support, it's like the people who use Google Apps for Domains, the hardcore Google users who actually run their own domain off of Google, we get the shaft. We get less. We don't have those Google Labs features that are in Gmail now.
Not even that. Google Reader, half the Google stuff doesn't work at all. So I have a Gmail account and a Google Apps account. The Gmail account exists solely to use all the Google stuff.
Yep. The people with Google Apps for Domains get the shaft. So because of that, I can't trust, without super confirmation that the Android phone isn't also going to shaft people who use Google Apps for Domains as opposed to just regular old Gmail. So screw Google. I'm still going to use Google Apps for Domains because it's still the best, but I'm going to just work through it with the shitty interface that I can, going to the web page in the web browser, syncing with the iCal and the calendar thing.
Well, I think my strategy for now is I'm not going to get the iPhone right away. I'll let Scott get it and a few other people get it. And by then, I'll probably know how well it's going to work with my work.
Well, I mean, my brother got an iPod Touch, and I was poking that, and all I had to do was poke it for 5 minutes, and I was like, yeah, all right, I'll get the iPhone.
Yeah. So it really just comes down to if I can support it with my work. Yeah. Because if I still have to carry that BlackBerry, I'm not buying
forget it. It's not. If I still had to carry the BlackBerry, I wouldn't. If it didn't replace it, I wouldn't do it either. The only other thing I can say about the iPhone is that as good as the multi-touch is, the keyboard is not better than actual QWERTY button keyboard, which is why my boss refuses to get an iPhone. But that's another tiny sacrifice I will make because the advantages are far away.
Plus, I'll point out, I've seen this kind of often on the train. I'll see a person with a BlackBerry or something, and plugged into it will be a full-size keyboard.
Wow.
Yeah.
Scary.
I mean, it could, because if you're just typing emails, I guess it would kind of
work. For
work.
A little email, okay, but for a big email, you're much better off taking your laptop, tethering it to the BlackBerry, and opening Outlook.
Yeah. Anyway, so 20 years ago at Michigan State University, a university that has much love from Rim because it's an awesome college town.
You didn't go there, though?
No, but I had a lot of friends there.
Because you were from Michigan.
And my brother went there. Right. And let me tell you, there was nothing...
wait, this is Michigan State, not U of M?
Not U of M.
Michigan State.
Michigan State.
All right.
The green one with the Spartans.
Okay, I didn't actually know it was green. All right.
Green and white in Lansing, the capital.
All righty.
Anyway, so 20 years ago, a man by the name of Richard Lenski, a biologist and evolutionary biologist, took a strain of E. coli and he split it up and made 12 E. coli populations. And for the last 20 years, he's been observing these 12 strains.
20 years?
Yes.
Wow, that's quite a large experiment he's got going on there.
They've undergone over 40,000 generations.
That is quite the experiment of grandioseness.
Well, in this time, I'm not going to get into all...
I'm no scientist. But I would be
I even wore a lab coat.
I would be mighty bored if I only worked on one software project for 20 years. I would be mighty bored.
I imagine he worked on other things.
I hope so, because goddamn, that'd be so boring. Well, one thing for 20 years.
Day 4008. No change.
Good God.
So I'm not going to get into all of the details, partly because I want to talk about a lot of other news tonight, and two, because Pete and Lisa and Scott Johnson will probably pick holes through anything I say beyond the kind of AP wire story.
Because we don't know what we're talking about.
I know a little bit.
We know more than most people, but not as much as people really know.
So here's the deal. I'm going to paraphrase from this article, and then I'm going to summarize the article. But sometime around the 31,500th generation, something dramatic happened in just one of the populations. The bacteria suddenly acquired the ability to metabolize citrates, a second nutrient in their culture that E. coli cannot normally use.
Wait, as in you squirt some oranges on it and it goes yummy, yummy, yummy.
Well,
but the other E. colis go, no.
No, it was something that was already there.
Okay.
Basically, now, this is why this is amazing. The ability to metabolize citrate in this manner is one of the specific traits that is used by bacteriologists to distinguish E. coli from other bacteria.
So in other words, if you want to do a test to find E. coli, you put some citrates in there, and if the citrates are not metabolized, then it's E. coli. But if the citrates are metabolized, then it's not E. coli.
Then it may be a different species.
Alrighty.
But apparently, basically, the gist of this is that these bacteria evolved a very complex and very specialized trait, and we observed this directly. Now, I don't think I need to preach to the choir here, but there has been a lot of evidence for evolution, the theory of evolution. There's really never been evidence against it. This is, I don't know how many nails there are in the coffin, but this is the biggest fucking nail I've ever seen.
I mean, we already had some like stakes right through the heart and stuff, but this is like, I don't know, this is like the nail of heaven through right down the asshole and out the mouth.
To paraphrase a quote from Jerry Coyne, another evolutionary biologist, he's from Chicago. The thing I like most is it says that you can get these complex traits evolving by a combination of unlikely events. That's just what the creationists say can't happen. And you know what? We watched it. It happened. Here it is.
On video. Through a microscope. Microscope, video, watch, see it.
I just think this is fascinating, and I'm hoping that Pete and Lisa and Scott will have something to say in the forums about how amazing this is.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, before we get on with more tech news roundup, aka Cop Out Monday.
It's not a cop out. This is good stuff.
Yeah, there is this time. Yeah, in the past, it has definitely been a cop-out. It's time for Things of the Day. So, I don't know how many of you are aware of this practice, but because a bunch of you were fooled in the forum, I have to bring this up. There is a pastime on the internet, a pastime that I love, that I adore, that I wish I had more time to try to get involved in, called link baiting or news baiting. Now, the idea here is that you make a fake...
Similar to Rick Rolling?
Not really.
All right.
You make a fake news story and try to get the real news to pick up on it. Or at the very least,
that
to try
happens
to
a lot.
fool a bunch of people. And there was a story, our forum was talking about it, about a teenager who stole his dad's credit card and bought hookers. And if you couldn't tell from reading the article, it was totally made up. And here is the detailed explanation of who made it up, why they made it up, who paid them to make it up, and how you're all too credulous for the internet.
Credulity. Learn it.
Well, no, credulity. Avoid it.
Same thing. If you learn about credulity, you won't have it.
You need to be incredulous.
Exactly. All right, are we good?
That's all I got.
All right, so if you're listening to Tech Monday, you should know about 2600 Magazine. It started out as sort of like... Yeah, okay. It started out as sort of like this sort of zine of sorts, and you had to like go to a news group and send it, self-addressed stamped envelope to get, sort of get it. It eventually became, a real quarterly magazine that was professionally published, and I think it's dead now. Isn't it dead now?
I stopped reading it in the 90s.
Yeah,
so.
I never actually read 2600, but it was always infamous. It's like everyone knew what it was, whether you'd read it or not.
It'll totally tell you how to make a blotto box.
Yeah, it's
Or urine
basically
box.
it's basically the magazine for the hacksaws, the real hackers. Like the whole history of what happened in technology in like the 80s and 90s is all in 2600 magazine. We're talking about everything from the phone freaking guys, to what caused the creation of the Electronic Frontier Foundation.
Yes, I mean, it's probably common knowledge to a lot of you techies, but knowing the 2600, the number, is a very important number, and not just because of the Atari.
Yep. And we're talking like, the whole story of Kevin Mitnick was in there, the whole thing, right? So I posted this in the forums already, but it's got to be my thing of the day anyway. They are making a hardcover bound book that is 888 pages. That is the best of 2600. So if you didn't have a chance to, live nerd history, or you're too young for that shit, or you just missed out on it or whatever, buy this book. You can pre-order on Amazon. It's only like $26. And you'll basically have, it's not every article in every 2600 ever, but it's the best of 2600. It's all the important stuff. It's all of the history of how technology got to where it is today from where it was about 20, 30 years ago. And it is, if you're a tech person, who's hip to the nets and whatnot, you're the elite. This is something you gotta own. You can't not have this. You can't be out of the loop on this shit.
I mean, I feel, in a way, I'm glad I live when I do now, because technology is just leaps and it's accelerating at a point that I can barely even keep up. But at the same time, there was a certain magic to the phone freaking era. That was kind of the Wild West, the wildest of Wild Wests of technology. And we came of age in the fading days of it. I mean, I redboxed a little bit, and then it was over.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you have to, if you are someone who's you have to know where you came from. You got to know the roots, This is, if you don't get the 2600 and you think you're a tech person, that's like if you're playing PS3s, you never played NESs. You don't know nothing about NESs. You got to know. You got to know this shit.
So like we said, this is a tech news roundup, which means that we're just pretty much going to cover a whole bunch of tech news, but we got a bunch of little things that we're not going to go into super depth about, but mostly our opinions, I think, are what matters. And if you don't know what the news specifically are, you want the details, there's a reason we link to things.
Yeah, go to the website, read the news articles.
People seem to
notice how we didn't go over what the features and what the announcement for the iPhone was. We just sort of gave our opinion of it.
Also,
because you can go to Engadget and read that shit.
People seem to like the one episode where we pretty much didn't hold back very much in terms of talking about tech. So we're going to try to go along that line a little bit more than we used to, but we're
right, I'm not supposed to hold back. I'll stop holding back now.
At least in terms of, we're not going to explain what IP addresses are before we talk about the INI.
The
INI. Right. So there's this article on Slashdot. God. There's something about that specific troll that I still crack up to this day.
It's a funny troll. What can I say?
Anyway, there's this article on Slashdot that recommends an interview with John DeGoes, or Goes, and basically the gist of it, the gist is what I want to talk about. The headline says it all. Open source killing commercial developer tools.
Yes.
Quote, some developers would rather quit their job than be forced to use a new editor IDE.
Yeah, so let me explain what this is.
It's very
right?
hard to sell these things as a result.
Okay, so there is software in the world that is meant to be used by people. Like, for example, Microsoft Office is meant to be used by people.
Oh, I guess we're explaining.
Oh shit!
You want to?
I'll explain only a little bit.
No, it's real simple. These are things that developers use to make software.
It is software made by developers for developers. Now, people often complain about open source software usually being bad for end users, like the GIMP. As much as the GIMP is good enough for me, it's not good enough
Using
for actual...
the GIMP is like being the GIMP.
Right, exactly. The software that is made by open source is usually not as usable for the average person because it is made by developers they make it for their own sensibilities, and being advanced users, it's not going to be sensible to my grandma that as much.
Yeah, even like Resound, I use it, but I defy a lot of people to even get Resound to work in Ubuntu.
Yeah, whereas GarageBand, nice and easy for those people, even though there's less features, right? So what's happened is developers, they make software for other people open source, but they also make software for other developers open source. And that software that is made for other developers by open source developers has taken over the world. You look at stuff like Django, Ruby on Rails, all these development toolkits, the Vim, the Emacs, all these sorts of GCC. I can just go on and on. All these developer tools made by developers have pretty much taken over the development world.
Now, this guy,
business,
I didn't read his whole interview, but basically he works for some company that makes this sort of software for money.
yeah, like stuff like Microsoft Visual Studio and stuff like that, competitors in that arena, not doing so well because for free, you can get the best stuff there is. It's not like open source. You can get it, but it's missing some features. It's when it comes to developers' tools, it's open source, better than everything else and free. And
Now,
over time...
What I want to get into, the reason for this, really. I mean, people, like this guy's article, it looks like he's just complaining about how it's really hard to compete in this market. And the article is pretty much just a shill for his development thing.
Yeah, screw that.
Yeah, but basically, I'm of the mind that screw that. That market is dead, and it should be dead. I'm glad it's dead.
Yeah.
And the reason it's dead, and the reason there's no point in making commercial software, is that the main problem with most open source is that people know, it's kind of like podcasting. You might know about audio and podcasting, but do you know about something else that's interesting to make a podcast about? A lot of audio software sucks because most people who write software don't know a hell of a lot about audio or don't care about it. Where all these open source projects often aren't good at what they do because there aren't enough people with the expertise to code these things that are also interested in making that specific software. There is very little, let's say, hospital management software that's open source because it's not fun to write hospital management software. But if you're a software developer and something pisses you off about your development tool, you make it better because it's the thing you definitely know about. You're writing code. You can write code to make writing code easier.
You sure can. And what happens over time is someone will get a job somewhere, right? And that place will use some proprietary development tool. Then they'll go somewhere else, and that place will use an open development tool of some kind. And they can't use the closed development tool they were using before because someone had to pay for it. And over time, they'll go to the next job, and even if that job uses a closed development tool, those open tools are still available for free. So what happens is over time, if developers move jobs and change habits and do stuff on their own, they will always have the open tools available to them no matter where they go or what they work on, whereas the closed tools are only available when they work in the places that have them. And thus, as developers, continue on in their careers, their default set of development tools will always be an open set of tools. And not only that, but the open set of tools are far superior in every possible respect.
Plus, if anyone made a commercial IDE or something that was, there's an argument for Visual Studio is actually a pretty damn good IDE if you're doing that sort of code.
Well, but it's mostly the reason people use that is because it's the only way to make like Microsoft software is to use that. There's no alternative.
Yeah, but in terms of if say some commercial company made an IDE that was like 1,000 times better than anything out there, whatever concepts they used, even if the code isn't stolen or shared or whatever, any developer who looks at it and goes, oh, that'd be a good feature, will just add it to their IDE.
Yeah, how many Visual Studio features are in Eclipse? Most of them.
Man, Eclipse has come a long way, I'll say this much.
Yeah, if you're doing Java, Eclipse is the way to go. You can use it for other things, but for Java, it's worthwhile. Yeah,
granted, I don't write a lot of code, so I pretty much use Notepad++ or VI to write my Python.
Yeah, see, VI, made a text editor made by people who text edit all day. They make VI with VI. Think about that. The VI is going to turn out real well if you make it with itself. So today's what, Monday?
It is Monday night, June 16th.
It's Monday the 16th, right.
2008.
So last Friday was the 13th. Because you have a Monday the 16th, you have a Friday the 13th. And when you have a Friday the 13th...
you have a Thursday the 12th.
Yeah, but you also have...
a Wednesday the 11th.
Tuesday the 17th. Dum, dum, dum. If anyone knows about the famous Ren and Stimpy episode with the bad juju, that was Tuesday the 17th, which only occurs in their Friday the 13th. Right?
I wonder how intentional that was.
Very intentional.
Anyway.
The Tuesday the 17th, tomorrow, is a very special Tuesday the 17th. Perhaps one of the most special Tuesday the 17th ever. Because Firefox 3 is going to be released. Not just release candidated, the full deal. It's going to be out for the real deal. Time to upgrade. Forget Firefox 2. Firefox 2 is dead. It sucks. Everyone knows it sucks. It sucks a lot. Firefox 3, awesome, super awesome. Not perfect, but a lot better than every other web browser. And the Mozilla people, what they're going to try to do is they're going to say, we want to have the most downloads ever of a software program in one day. So the more people that download Firefox 3, you are going to be part of a Guinness Book of World Record, which will hopefully, if that is achieved, provide additional stimulus and, I guess, advertising in a way for Firefox. Increase the word of mouth. It'll get the word out there some more.
Granted, I'm of the opinion that Guinness Book is pretty much just pablum.
Oh, it is quite the pablum. Regardless, it will still help the Firefox with its pablum. Regardless, and Firefox 3, even if you don't want to upgrade to it tomorrow for the stupidity of the world record and whatnot, you should probably be using Firefox 3 no matter what kind of computer or device you are using. If Firefox 3 is available, that's the browser you want to use if possible, because let me tell you, I've been using it for a few months now. It is 1,000 times superior to every other web browser that I've ever used in my entire life. I mean, the Firefox 2 problems of crashing and running out of memory, gone. Slow interface problems, gone. Features missing, gone. Fast, super fast. Renders things nicely, perfectly. Firefox 3 is where it's at, people. You got to be upgrading tomorrow. You're probably listening to this. You're probably listening to this on Tuesday because we do Monday night. So right now, getfirefox.com and download that shit.
Right, so there's this article here. I'm not going to get into the specifics once again because it's an issue that a lot of people...
I thought we weren't holding back.
Well, yeah, but the specifics of the issue itself and why it came up in the article are not that interesting. What's interesting and what a lot of people seem to have questions about is the whole idea of a return to sender or sender receipts on an email.
Because isn't that when I send a thingy, but I want to get a notification that you opened it?
Yep. Now, I mean, a lot of commercial or like office things do that. Like Exchange, you can tell it to use a receipt, and then whenever you open an email, it'll say, hey, do you want to send a sender receipt? And most people click never and then check never ever again.
Yeah, but the idea is that it gives you a possible way, right, for you to send someone an email, and then if they want to, they can let you know they got it. That's all it is.
Granted, at least in corporations, I very much like and used a lot the idea that that is not an option and that you will know the second that anyone read an email that you send in the corporation. And where I worked before at the hospital, it was set up that way. And at IBM, it was set up that way. And that was possibly the best thing ever when I would inform someone of something and then they didn't do it, or they complained when their server got turned off, despite the fact that I sent them 10 emails telling them I was going to turn it off, and voicemails, and I could point and say, well, on Monday, you read the email that said that I was going to turn it off. On Tuesday, you read the critical high priority email that said I was going to turn it off. You obviously did nothing.
Ah, good times.
Yeah, but a lot of people are really freaked out by this, and a lot of people get really nervous about it. And then these companies come along and say, we've got a special technology where if you send someone an email, we can tell you when they read it. We can tell you how long they read it. We can make it so they can't forward it to other people. We can make it so it self-destructs.
You can't do that.
Here's the deal. Pretty much.
I can always just copy-paste the text out.
Well, all right, let's tackle these in order. First off, the way most spam does that is they'll include an image, either an invisible, like 1 pixel by 1 pixel little like spliff of an image there, or just the whole email will be an image. And the image is not an embedded image. It links back to a server somewhere. And then they know if that image got downloaded. So if you put this little 1 pixel by 1 pixel, and you make the file name unique for each one in each email you send out, like some sort of serial number, then you know if someone visited and read that email, because then their client went out and got that image.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Google and smart clients just don't allow images from untrusted clients unless you explicitly allow them.
You don't see the images in your email until you click a button that says display images. So that plan doesn't work. Try again.
So, but the thing is, a lot of people just click that anyway, or use clients where that's the default, so it actually works pretty well to find out if someone read an email. Now, the way they go one step further, let's say they want to know how long someone read an email. This is so clever. They'll embed another invisible image, but they'll throttle the rate so that it sends pixels at a time or bytes at a time. And the email client, if it's stupid, which most email clients are, will slowly read this image as long as it's open and stop reading it once you close the email. So you can pretty cleverly figure out how long someone read an email within a reasonable window of certainty, or reasonable error.
Another thing people do is they send you an email, right, that's actually a big image, but they use some other magic and they can figure out exactly where you clicked on the email. Like, did you click on this link or that link? And all the different links on the email are actually slightly different. So when you click on one link or another, they take you to the same place that the spam wants you to go to. But because the links were named differently, their web server says, aha, he must have clicked on that link. So now they know which links in the email are getting clicked on more. And then they adjust the way their spam looks to sort of get more clicks from people.
Now, a lot of people really freak out about this. And one, I don't care at all.
I really don't care either.
I'm fine with people knowing if I read an email or didn't read an email because... Let's be honest.
If I don't, I'll just say don't send a sender receipt this time.
The only reason to not want someone to know that you read their email is if you plan on avoiding them or whatever they tried to send you without having to tell them to their face.
Well, I also do it sometimes where I don't want people to think I read the email and took a long time to reply. I want people to think
But I do read the email and then take a long time to reply.
I know.
I knew it was there and I didn't read it purposefully.
I want to read the email. I want people to think I read the email and replied relatively quickly, like within a day.
Oh, yes, but obviously that's not true.
Well, it is most of the time. It is true, actually.
No, you know the email was there. You just didn't respond to it.
Yes.
You saw it there and you decided, like, say you knew that there was an email receipt.
But see, if there's no receipt, then they might have some doubts that maybe I didn't read it.
Oh, yeah, but that's the thing. It's just you trying to pull the wool over on them.
That's fine. I like to pull the wool.
See, I think the difference...
I'm pulling the wool without actually lying.
The difference in philosophy here can be summed up pretty easily, because you saw this a lot in the early days of IM, and I'm sure you still do. I just don't pay attention anymore. But I remember you always had the option of let other people know when I'm online or idle, or don't. Let other people know when I'm typing, or don't. And I've always allowed people to have this information.
The only one I don't do is know what I'm typing, because sometimes I'll type, and then I'll say, oh, actually, I didn't want to say anything. And then they'll be like, what were you going to say? And I'm like, I decided not to.
See, I let it go anyway. And you know what? Google lets me know when you're typing.
That's fine. I just, sometimes I want to, I don't want, if I can avoid going, oh yeah, and what? Oh, never mind. If I can avoid that, that's okay by me.
But pretty much, just a final bit here about this news. A lot of these companies try to say something like, hey, we can send you an email that you can't forward, or an email that you can't. That's impossible.
That is impossible.
That's absolutely impossible. Unless they set up some sort of proprietary system, which one, you're just not going to use their system. Or some sort of ActiveX, use the OpenGL driver to send something directly to the frame
here's what you can do.
buffer.
Here's what you can do. I can send an email to them, right? They take a screenshot of the email and turn it into an image. They email the image to the other guy that I actually want to send it to. Then they check to see when the image was requested and by who, and then they check, to see if that's actually the person the mail was mailed to.
But the image is in his cache.
Right, and if that email gets forwarded to someone, then it won't load the image and they won't see any email. But that person can always just take the image, save it, and email it to someone, or copy and paste, or any sort of thing like that.
All these sorts of soft or fake DRM that are applied to otherwise open protocols or standards are just instill a false sense of security and are pretty much nothing but scams.
Pretty much, yeah. There's a few problems in the world that you may not realize are problems.
The fact that I have to carry 4 power strips with me when I go anywhere.
That is a problem. There's also the problem that many devices that you plug in and to charge will actually constantly, take electricity out of the wall even when they don't need it.
Also, the fact that a lot of different electronic devices use completely different plugs and completely different adapters to get their power.
Yep. And in a way that's good because every different device has sort of its own proprietary rechargeable battery, which is sort of bad in the proprietariness, but it's good in that these batteries are custom for the devices that they're for, rather than every device having to adapt to use AA's or AAA's. It's much more efficient that way. And, you can design batteries to be just strong enough for the device and have the charge for the correct amount of time and all that good stuff. So someone has come up with sort of a solution, but the solution won't take off unless more people get on the bandwagon. The solution is this green plug thing. Now, first of all, for the environmentally curious people, right? This thing will save a lot of electricity if people use it, because all that standby electricity usage, that just won't happen with this thing. It's designed to not let you use electricity when you don't need it.
This is the kind of thing that has been a long time coming. The idea that you can... I mean, we have two-way communication with almost every piece of electronics now. I mean, printers used to be one way a lot of the times, but now the printer can talk back and say, hey, I didn't print that. Why can't my cell phone tell the adapter, hey, stop powering that transformer, I'm done?
Yep. So what this green plug thing is it's a universal plug. Their goal is that, I guess, as many electronic devices as possible, perhaps every electronic device, iPods, cell phones, Nintendo DSs, PSPs, your Bluetooth earpiece, anything that needs charging, right, that you have, your laptop, will, instead, like my laptop has a power cable, my DS has a different power cable, right, that instead, everyone will just use their power cable, the green thing, the green bug, whatever it's called. And no one will use any other kind of power cable, and everyone will just make their device to use this thing, which is a great idea because, first of all, you just have to carry one of these bad boys around. You can charge everything, and you won't have to worry about carrying separate shit. That's great. 2, we could actually build these things into the wall if if it's just universal. Why not?
Oh man! Well, the thing is, even way back when I was thinking about, hey, I should buy a house, I toyed with the idea of having some DC for all the servers and things we'd have.
Yep. And number 3, this thing does the two-way communication with your device. So you look at the plug, and it will tell you which devices that are plugged into it are charged, how much they're charged, how much electricity you've saved, how much you've used, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you could actually probably set options on it. There's a lot of possibilities there, and they've only really scratched the surface with the kind of stuff that you could do.
Well, go on.
Like you could tell it, hey, only charge my laptop up, or hey, forget everything else. I need my laptop charged really quickly, or all kinds of good stuff like that. And if more companies start using this instead of using their own personal proprietary cables for every single different device, then the world would probably be a lot better place overall and a lot more convenient for everyone who uses electricity and has portable devices.
And convenience aside, I mean, I know environmentalism, not just from all, and there's all these different perspectives on it, but there's a very practical element here, regardless of your feelings and all these things, to conserving electricity, because energy is becoming the rarest and most important commodity in the world.
Actually, even more than saving electricity by using this device, you know what the biggest impact on the environment is going to be? The fact that instead of having 100 different factories around the world making all sorts of different plugs, there'll be one factory making the same exact plug over and over again, which is 1,000 times more efficient.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, see, that's the kind of thing that the people don't think of.
But anyway.
If you want to save energy, factories are the place to save the most energy.
There's zoom out, economy of scale.
Exactly.
That's why electric cars are in many ways a good idea, because then you've separated you can do the conversion to electricity much more efficiently.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors.
Oh yeah, there's a lot there. I could talk for hours about that.
The point is, Westinghouse, which is not the biggest player, has decided they're on board with this.
Way to quote the article.
What?
Quote someone from Westinghouse. We're not the biggest player.
Really? I didn't read the article. I didn't read that.
But we're the first.
It's true. They're the first company on board with this, and I hope that maybe we can get, say, I don't know, Sony on here. Maybe that would help.
No, you realize what's going to happen.
How about Fujitsu? How about Samsung? Samsung, you help us out?
No, you realize exactly what's going to happen. So Samsung is going to jump on board with this right away, and so is Microsoft, for whatever things they sell. And then Google will put on their Android.
Where are you at?
But then
Nokia.
But then Sony is going to release
Apple?
Blue Plug, and Blue Plug is going to be 1% faster at recharging, but it turns out you can only plug it into Sony products.
That's just fantastic. I mean,
it'll have DRM
even
too.
if they did that, even if they had a universal plug for each company, like the Fujitsu plug, the Sony plug, that would still be 1,000 times better than what we have now.
I would only need the Apple/Nintendo plug.
I know, right? No, but I hope that this happens, and we should.
This idea is not just for portable consumer electronics.
For everything.
The idea of a universal plug like this for LCDs, for my Marantz, for every piece of electronics, because one of the biggest things where we waste electricity and power and energy in the modern world today is the inefficient distribution of power, the inefficient management of power. The wiring in most houses in this country is atrocious.
Yep.
And vacuum cleaners and TVs and all these things, if we just manage...
Everything has its own power supply, and they're all different, and the power system in your house knows nothing about these power supplies. If there was more communication between the power in the house, the grid, and the actual power you need to use, we could distribute it a lot more efficiently, a lot more
we
specialized.
can't make end-to-end intelligence. In fact,
that's ludicrous.
There's been a long-standing argument both in telecommunications and in power transfer. I was going to say
Transmission?
and I was also going to say transformation, but I meant to say transmission.
Yes.
But the idea of, do you make the network dumb and the nodes intelligent, or the nodes dumb and the network intelligent? And there are arguments equally in both directions.
You can make the whole thing intelligent, but that's just ludicrous.
Well, but I'm ambivalent on the issue. But
yeah.
I think the best place to start is at the endpoint level with power, with consumer technology, and then from there with houses. Yeah, I envision the day where, regardless of what happens with the grid in the future, there is the demarc point to my house, and then my house will have a computerized, intelligent power distribution system.
Yep. I mean, think about it. Right now, the actual devices themselves are as intelligent as they're going to be. The next step is to make between the devices and the wall
because
intelligent.
The house
and that's the step we're looking
stupid.
at now.
The house is stupid.
Right. And if we get to that point where everything is powered but with the same green bug thingy, then we can make the house intelligent. And then we can work our way up from there.
All right, then I think we have to get on to our other big news, because while I really want to talk about Verizon dropping AltNet, which I don't care about, but I'm sure some people do. No, I'm not actually that hungry.
I'm hungry.
And I really want to talk about this Wall Street becoming a Linux stronghold article, because it's totally true.
It's totally true.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. And I really, really, really want to talk about how the EFF won that case about first sale in terms of promo CDs. Because first sale, if nothing else, mark my words, the doctrine of first sale is going to become one of the biggest fucking issues in the next 3 or 4 years.
I say the next 1 or 2 years it's going to be huge, and I think it's actually going to be settled, and I'm predicting now it'll be settled in our favor.
Well, you know what? If it is not settled in our favor, we still win. But we'll talk about that.
I know.
All right, people. For the next Monday show, do you want cyber warfare or do you want first sale doctrine?
Is first sale doctrine even really a Monday?
I think the technology issues surrounding it alone.
It is. We could do that.
It could be a Thursday.
All right.
We'll see.
So, instead, we have to talk about this big news of metering by your ISPs.
Now, this is such a complicated issue that we cannot do it justice in, I don't know, the last 20 minutes of this show.
Are we really going to time over 20 minutes?
I don't know, but I think what the fundamental issue is, the core, if we go all the way down to the bottom, we get as far down as we can go, is that the ISPs in the United States, pretty much since the beginning of broadband, have been lying.
Yep.
They've been saying to people, look, unlimited. Here's the speed we give you up and down in the best case. We will give you unlimited bandwidth, and it costs X per month.
Use it all day, use it all night. We don't care how much you use it. We're going to set the speed on you, but that's it.
Now, you know what? The only reason that was viable back then was, there's a little secret, the dirty secret of the internet, was because they assumed, much like gyms, that 99% of users would use maybe 1% of that capacity.
I posted this whole thing in the forum, but if you go to like a workout gym like Gold's Gym or New York Sports Club or Equinox or whatever kind of gym you have near you, right?
I'm thinking about getting a gym membership, actually.
New York Sports Club isn't bad. You
Here's
can take a shower.
In the winter, right? In the summer, I don't care because I do all this stuff. But in the winter, there's one right next to Grand Central.
Yep.
And 2, I can shower.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm thinking about, then I could bike to work, wear my pajamas on the train.
If I lived in the city, I would get one and one that had a pool so I could swim.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Of course, if I lived in the city, I'd live in a building that had a pool.
Yes, that too. Hey, so.
With my millions and my diamond shoes.
We get this one pool building in Brooklyn I know we can afford, but the pool's small. Anyway.
Yeah, and also, as much as I like Brooklyn, I would rather live in either Manhattan or, I don't know, on the Hudson line.
I like to live in. Anyway. So. Metering the internets. Right, what was I saying?
Oh, I didn't even get to my point.
Right, so much like gyms, the way a gym membership works, like if you own a Gold's Gym, the way you make your money is you have a membership drive. Around New Year's, you get all the fat people to sign up for your gym, right? And you say, come on, lose weight, people. It's only like $30 a month. And they go, woo, and they sign up.
And let me tell you, if you're a member of a gym, pretty much the 3 weeks after New Year's are hell because there's a million people who have never been to a gym before. Half of them don't even have gym clothes, desperately trying to use the treadmill and maybe the
Stairmaster.
Yeah, because they're afraid of everything else. And then there's all the other people who think they're going to lift weights but don't know how. And then none of those people will be back.
Right. But those people, they don't cancel, or they, it's sort of like World of Warcraft.
You
They don't
realize
cancel.
they can't cancel. There's usually a fee.
That too. So these people keep paying and paying and paying, but they're not using the facilities. And that's how gyms make all their money. If gyms actually had that New Year's traffic all year, they would go out of business because they couldn't afford to buy all of those workout machines to have all those people
But
there.
at the same time, that would mean there's enough demand that they could just raise their prices, or there'd be a lot more gyms.
That too.
But that's not how it is.
That's not how it is. They make money, they make good profits because they can have less facilities available. They don't have to actually supply to meet the potential demand of the customer. And the ISP is the same way. They could have 1,000 customers, right, and only actually have enough real bandwidth available for like 100 of them because only 10% of the people are actually using it at any one time. So,
Now here is the rub, if you will. The internet is that times 100 billion.
Yep.
I mean, let's cut back in the day, right? Way back. I happened to live in a place where I had a cable modem when I was in early high school, like 9th grade. I had a cable modem. And my friends had a cable modem. And like our area, we all got cable modems. And everyone was like, oh snap, cable modems, fast internet all the time, cheap, whatever. And it was this trial rollout. So we all had them. And they advertised unlimited speed. And I looked and realized, wait a minute, I can upload and download as much as I want. My computer can be on 24/7. My computer can be on the internet when I am not on my computer. And I started downloading things. And pretty much, I maxed out my pipe from the moment I got my cable modem until the moment I turned off the computer before a thunderstorm like 3 months later. And I'm pretty sure that I personally accounted for a significant percentage of the bandwidth used in that trial period. There are a lot of people like me nowadays, and a lot of people aren't just downloading, they're uploading. The internet cannot stand as it is.
yes, for ISPs to be able to handle all this bandwidth, as much as people are yelling at their ISPs thinking they're up to evil or lying, they're not. To be able to handle all this bandwidth of all these YouTubing people and BitTorrenting people, they're going to have to buy a lot more cables. People talk about the dark fiber. You know how much it takes to turn on dark fiber?
Plus, a lot of that dark fiber is useless.
Yes. They're going to have to spend, if you're an ISP and you actually want to be able to handle all this new bandwidth that people are using, you're going to have to spend so much money on laying new cables, getting new routers, the whole thing. It's going to be insane. So
Now, wait. Because that's not 100% true. The evil part. Because this is what bothers me. All right. The ISPs basically have been lying forever and saying unlimited bandwidth, even though it's not true. And now, because people are smart enough to use that capacity, and there are ways to use that capacity that are things that normal people would be doing. I mean, in the early days, it didn't matter. Only people like me or Scott or half of you listening were using all that bandwidth. Most people weren't. But now, a lot of people are using peer-to-peer. A lot of people are YouTubing. A lot of people are running servers and all this business. So because the ISPs were lying, they've kind of painted themselves into a corner where if they stop lying, all the people who still lie will get all the business, at least early on. And two, even if they all stop lying, consumers are going to be really mad about how they lost this thing that they had before.
yeah, I mean, usually, service is supposed to get better, not worse. You can't be offering me less than before for more money. That's not cool.
What the ISPs are offering in replacement for this, the so-called metered internet, is not the solution. It is not a true metered internet. It is basically bullshit.
A true metered internet would have disadvantages, but it would also have many advantages that make it very desirable.
It would be
for the ISPs and for the customers.
You know what it would be like? It would be just like how you pay for your electricity now. I used X kilowatt hours. A kilowatt hour cost Y dollars.
Maybe there would be a flat base fee, to sort of cover.
Well, I was about to get to that.
Yeah.
I pay X dollars per Y kilowatt hour. I also pay N dollars per month for the wires that connect to my house and give me the privilege of buying that power.
Yep.
If the internet were like that and I don't know, $1 a gigabyte and maybe $5 a month for the privilege of the wire.
Now, the thing is, there's a problem there with $1 per gigabyte. Is that okay? $1 per gigabyte now. But what about a year from now when bandwidth is even getting crazier?
Yes,
if they keep that $1 per gigabyte price when the internet gets faster, we're going to be paying out the nose.
That's why it's not a terribly analogous situation, because the price of gas and the price of electricity is not going to be going down. My electricity is not going to be cheaper next year. My electric bill is double. Well, not my electric bill. My electric bill is actually less. My gas bill is double what it was last year.
Yep.
Bandwidth is getting cheaper at a rate that is ludicrous.
So if they actually metered the internet the way they metered water, they would have to keep charging less and less and less over time to sort of make it so that the average person, they would look at the average usage. So that way the average person, like we pay $50. So they would have to keep changing how much it cost per gigabyte. So the average person would be paying around $50.
Now what they could do,
nothing users would pay less and the crazy users would pay more.
What they could do, which would be fair, is what most oil people who use fuel oil, the way they sell it, is you'll buy fuel oil, you'll negotiate or pay for a rate, and that rate is good for 1 year, and you sign a contract. So say I sign the contract. For the next year, I pay $1 a gigabyte.
Yep.
Total per month. And then at the end of a year, it gets renegotiated based on the current market prices.
Yep.
And that's probably a safe, fair way to do it.
That is a safe, fair way to do it.
But the ISPs don't want that.
No.
Because, you see,
that would be too good.
What if they pull the cell phone model? The cell phone model of you pay X dollars for Y minutes, and then you pay a fee for minutes above that. Because then you either have to buy more bandwidth than you need or not buy enough and get fucked.
Yep, it's like I could buy 200 minutes and I only use 10. Great for my grandma who only uses it for 5 minutes. Yeah, she gets ripped off, right? Or me, I need a bajillion minutes. Well, you're going to have to pay $1 bajillion. Well, great, thanks. Even though I went on vacation this month, and I didn't actually use it, I still have to pay the bajillion because I need it next month.
Now, the thing is, I don't know where I want to go with this, because on one hand, I feel as though a truly metered internet is probably the only way forward in the medium term. Yeah. But in the long term, bandwidth is getting cheap, and also wireless technology is getting better.
The thing is, even with something like WiMAX, the WiMAX would go to an antenna, which would go to a pipe that is not big enough to handle all the WiMAX.
In the Asimovian long term, I foresee that ad hoc wireless everything transmits and receives will make this a moot point.
And this is the fundamental problem here. Is that the internet is designed as a web. Your ISP at that level of the internet, compared to when looking at all the other ISPs and not the individual people, it is a web. Everyone's connected to everyone else all over the place. It's a big mesh. And all the routers are
And you have agreements with all the people you're connected to, pairing agreements. And you have agreement, like you're not connected directly to some people, so you have agreements with other people in between to get between the networks. And everyone it's like everyone owns a bunch of bridges, and we all let each other use each other's bridges, and we all charge each other tolls.
Yeah, but us with our DSLs and our cable modems, we're not in the web. We are actually hanging off the side in a hierarchy, and at the top of our hierarchy is our ISP. And as a result, the ISP owns us.
Your ISP, all of you out there, unless you have something awesome, which none of you do, maybe the places you work at do, but you do not, most likely. Your ISP, if you zoom out to the telco level or the internet level, your ISP is like this little thing kind of hanging off the end.
Yep.
I mean, the real, the peering and the real high tier internet you go to XO and you get your circuit to the internet, and that's a whole different
or you get a direct to the Sprint link or something like that.
Yeah.
Or you go to AT&T and you say, "Hey, AT&T, I've got these server farm here. I'd like to throw a couple DS3s your way. How about that?"
Yeah, you'll peer to the internet through RCN or XO or something, but none of you have that. So the internet is, in most ways, a hierarchical hierarchy.
Are there any other kinds of hierarchies that are non-hierarchical?
Ooh, I want to design a non-hierarchical hierarchy.
Perhaps it would be an acute, obtuse angle?
All right, I think we're done.
No. The point is, metered internet could be good, depending on how it's implemented. Something has to change. The false advertising is no good, but the bullshit metering is also no good.
I feel as though the ISPs are not being 100% truthful and are making a slightly unpleasant situation out to be far worse than it is.
That is true, but also the users are basically, overreacting, saying ISPs are evil, everything you say is a lie, give
But
me
at the same
unlimited, which
time-
is unreasonable.
At the same time, the ISPs have a lot of people, a lot of very powerful interests, have a vested interest in you not having cheap available bandwidth.
That's true.
The media producers, the media distributors, the cell phone companies,
Yep.
all these people do not want you to have cheap bandwidth.
You know who does want you to have cheap bandwidth, actually?
Google, YouTube.
Podcasters.
Yes. And Google and
Podcasters want
YouTube.
you to have cheap bandwidth.
Google,
How many people in
YouTube,
Australia? Because Australia only has 1 or 2 international links. They have super limits on all their internets. They can't download the Geek Nights. I mean, that's what it could be if they meter it the bad way.
This has been Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geek Nights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com, or you can send audio feedback via audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geek Nights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geek Nights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.